Hello and welcome to CyberStuffXR's Game of the Year nominees. We've got a bunch of great games to talk about, so without further ado, let's dive straight in. High on Life is not a game you'll see on many Game of the Year lists, but for me at least, it was one of my favourite games of 2022. As a fan of Rick and Morty, I was immediately intrigued by the comedy, but as I progressed through the campaign, I found it to be a competent and very enjoyable first-person shooter. Now, this is not a AAA game, it's certainly a bit rough around the edges, but I was really impressed by what they managed to pull off. It sort of takes on this God of War Ragnarok style of open world exploration where it's split off into different worlds, but there's still lots to collect and many hilarious secrets to find. This game is absolutely full of just the wackiest side content I think I've ever seen. And while this isn't some 100-hour long adventure, that was sort of a breath of fresh air, as it certainly didn't overstay its welcome, and I found the combat to get better and better as the story progressed. And speaking of the story, it's definitely nothing special, but I did actually come to like the characters, especially somehow the talking guns. And they're definitely the appeal of the game. Beyond their chattiness, they do have special abilities and are all fun to use in their own way. There is a reason why this game has not received much critical acclaim. It's wacky, it's silly, and it's all over the place. And I can see some people finding that absolutely excruciating. But if you're a fan of Justin Roiland's other work like Rick and Morty, Trover Saves the Universe, and Squanch Games' other titles, then I definitely encourage you to give it a try.
LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga is one of my favourite games that's come out this year. For anyone who's played any LEGO games before, this game is just a new level of good. You can tell instantly when you load up the game, the graphical quality is just something that is so much better than any other one that I've played. And I mean, at points when playing it, I kind of forgot that I was playing a LEGO game, which is funny to say considering all the characters are made out of LEGO. And then this matched up with the classic kind of humour of the game, but you also get talking. It was quite a cool addition. It was something unusual, but I thought it made the game quite good and it's funny, and if you didn't like it, you could turn off the talking. Excluding just the funny parts and what it looks like, the general gameplay was really fun. I mean, the boss fights that you had, they were really creative and kind of taken from the movie, so you get everything you like, but just a little bit of a twist on it. And then something that I'm sure everyone's aware of is the mass character selection that's available when you play a game like this. It's just a game that can last hundreds of hours if you put the time in. I just think it's great. You have all 9 movies, you have hidden collectibles at every single corner, and I mean, I spent multiple hours on one small area in the game just figuring out the puzzles, which on that note, the puzzles, for a game that's targeted towards children, young adults in general, they're quite challenging. I mean, there's a good few tests in there and they're not too difficult, but enough to keep you entertained to a point where it doesn't feel like you're just playing a child's game. But overall, I just think it's such a massive step up within the genre of LEGO games, and it's definitely one of my Game of the Year nominees.
Horizon Forbidden West is a game that I'm very conflicted on. On one hand, I never truly felt engaged with its narrative or connected with its characters, but on the other, it's really a technical marvel. The visual fidelity in the cutscenes and even just exploring the different biomes is truly incredible. And I also really enjoyed its ultra satisfying combat. This game has a lot going for it, but it never really quite clicked with me. Nevertheless, I still had a lot of fun playing it, and I've put in many hours. And although it certainly wasn't some life-changing masterpiece, I did have fun with it. On paper, this is a sequel that improves on everything from the original game, but I guess it just wasn't for me.
Stray was a game that came out that I never expected to like, but really did, and I think is one of the best games of this year. The post-apocalyptic cyberpunk setting that the game puts you in right from the start makes you kind of feel a sense of curiosity that I've never really felt before in a game. Everything is unknown, it's not how it should be, but things are kind of familiar, and you have kind of this world that's in ruins, but it's also so beautiful at the same time. You have neon lights, you have these caring robots. That kind of environment that you're placed in is really what makes the game what it is. Just the production value of it all, considering it was from a small indie developer, is just really impressive. And I think, although obviously there's some other Game of the Year contenders that might be much more well funded and bigger stories, but for what it is and where it's come from and how it was made, I think it deserves to be recognised as a contender for Game of the Year. It is such a well-made game that you'd think it's from a AAA developer. I mean, I would personally anyways. All of those factors in one, I think, makes it deserving of a Game of the Year nomination.
God of War Ragnarok is a game that I could talk about for hours. In my eyes, it truly is the perfect sequel, keeping everything great from God of War 2018 and improving on the stuff that didn't work. One of the only problems I had with 2018 was that there just wasn't that much variety. Sure, there was a lot to explore in Midgard, but the other realms, not so much. But thankfully, God of War Ragnarok lets you explore nearly every corner of nearly every realm. Every single one is so detailed, and just when you think that you've explored everything, you discover an entirely new section with tons of stuff to do. And it's not just your generic open world chores. Nearly all of the side content is actually meaningful, and it's certainly worth doing as you make your way through the main story, which is of course the standout aspect of the game. It's on a completely different level compared to 2018. The stakes are raised, there are so many new characters, and there is just a lot more going on. Sometimes this can be a recipe for disaster, but in my opinion, God of War Ragnarok handles it perfectly. I found myself liking, or at least empathizing with all of the characters, and thoroughly enjoyed getting to know their motivations. If you haven't played it yet, I can't recommend it to you enough.
Sniper Elite 5 is one of the best games that I've played this year. From the campaign mode and the newly introduced Axis Invasion mode, I really enjoyed every aspect of this game, and one of my favourite parts was that you could experience almost all of it with a friend. The entire campaign supported 2-player co-op, and I loved every second of it. The massive maps that you could play on were just incredible. I mean, the amount of possibilities to how many different ways you could kill people is crazy, and it just reminded me of Hitman in the sense that you can just kill someone by sniping them from behind, you can run up to them, gun-ho, you can do whatever you want, but the mission will still count. And I think that kind of creativeness of it all, and having it co-op, is just such a good gameplay mechanic. The Axis Invasion mode also kept me occupied for a very long time. I mean, I spent at least 5 to 10 hours playing it, and essentially what you do is you go in and you join someone else's campaign. They can be solo or duo, so you essentially become one of the bots that you play against, but as a real person. So I could sneak up on the two of them and call a phone that's in the game, find out the location, and I have to try and kill them. It was a really cool idea, and it also made the campaign, when you're playing it, feel just that bit more exciting, because at any point you can get raided. Me and some friends played the survival mode a lot, and just kind of progressing through in these maps that are unique to the campaign. I think they were kind of snippets from the campaign. You just had to survive against waves and waves of bots. And then linking to the online, you have just the kind of general online mode, which I think was actually alright. I mean, you have team deathmatch, your bog standard game modes, but it just felt really cool having these gameplay mechanics that are built so well, but you can play it against more real people. I just felt like it was just a nice addition, which they didn't have to do, but they did, which I just think it was something that makes it just that bit better. Overall, I just really enjoyed it.
The Quarry is a very different game to the rest of the titles in this video, but I still really enjoyed it for its unapologetic 80s horror movie influence and the impactful choices it confronted you with throughout the story. It truly felt like an interactive movie in all of the best ways. Now, being from the same studio, there will no doubt be comparisons to Until Dawn, and it certainly makes sense. You can really tell that they found a formula that works and are really sticking to it. And in some ways, I think it might be even better. While Until Dawn can feel a bit cheesy at times, The Quarry fully embraces the corniness and is all the better because of it. If you're looking for a thrilling 80s inspired horror game, I definitely recommend that you check out The Quarry. I first played the Stanley Parable in 2015, and back then it was a brilliant and hilarious commentary on the state of gaming in the mid-2010s. But video games have evolved a lot since then, for better or for worse, and that's where the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe comes in. Even its name is a joke about the countless amount of additions that every game seems to launch with now. Even as someone who's exhausted all of the content multiple times in the Stanley Parable, I was still able to lose many hours just exploring the the brand new content, which might even be better than the content in the original. There's just something so special about this game. The narrator seems to have infinite dialogue reacting to every single action you take, and just when you think you've broken the game, the developers have prepared a response, and it's always hilarious. There's truly no other game like the Stanley Parable. Elden Ring has risen to the top of countless Game of the Year lists, and while I didn't enjoy it quite as much as everyone else seems to, I can appreciate the massive jump in scale and accessibility that it's provided for the genre. The incredible world put together by From Software is teeming with wonder at every single corner, and exploration is by far the best part. It really doesn't hold your hand, and that's a good thing. Whereas other open world games fill the map with seemingly pointless icons, Elden Ring does the exact opposite, letting you discover its intricately detailed environments in whichever way you choose. And the sense of exploration it creates is truly unique and something I would love to see more of. Those were our favourite games of 2022, but what were yours? Let us know in the comments, and whichever game has the most votes will become the CyberStuffXR Community Game of the Year. Thank you for watching, and happy holidays.